Hi everybody, and welcome back to our channel. Let's go ahead and get this yawning elephant out of the way. This is Luna. She is my friend's dog. For those of you who have been watching us from like day one, you know I hate dogs, but I like this one. If y'all see her running around my home, that's who she is moving forward. The topic of today is something that has mystified me for a while because it affects me directly, and I have never been able to put into words exactly why my dating history is the way that it is. On Reddit, there is a subreddit called interracial dating, and one of the posts on this subreddit is, why do some of us here have greater interest in dating interracially and have greater attraction / preference to dating certain races over others, including our own? Would I say that I prefer to date interracially? Yes. Do I know where that comes from? No. Was I a self-hating black woman that just didn't want to be with black men? No. Strange explanation number one, I feel like if I were to date somebody black or to be with someone black, to marry a black man, it would just feel like it's too familiar. Not incestuous, but it would just feel like, oh, you could be my brother. And I don't know. That's what I've got. Explanation number two is that I have always been most attracted to people who are different than I am. So when I saw this post, I was really fascinated by the fact that somebody was asking this thing that I've always struggled with out loud. Now, I do want to make clear that I am not making this video to talk smack about the black community, to talk smack about anybody else's community, or to open up the comments for anybody to be rude and disrespectful. I'm simply sharing my experience and relating to the posts that have been shared on this subreddit. So if it's anything hateful, I will be blocking, I will be deleting, but if it's just a constructive conversation, I welcome that 100%. Let's go ahead and get into it. It can be environmental, to be honest. If someone grows up around a certain race / ethnicity, etc., it's not unusual they end up having a preference for them. Growing up, the town that I lived in was very, very diverse. It was common for you to work alongside, go to school with, live alongside people who did not look like you, sound like you, come from the same country that you came from, come from the same culture. It was just very normal for there to be some mixing and mingling. Grew up in a very white part of the country, went to a school where I was the only black woman in my year. As such, I was mainly exposed to white people and have the same hobbies, interests, accent, upbringing, etc. as them. I just simply didn't interact with many black men or other ethnic minorities. It's definitely shaped who I'm most attracted to / have an interest in dating now, and who ends up going for me. Ultimately, I'm only going to go where I'm loved and respected, and so far it's mainly white men who do that for me. I love this last point about going where you're loved and respected. I don't know what it is about me that has attracted that kind of individual into my life, but I know that I feel most appreciated and most valued by a Latin American man. I am a white woman that is just plain not attracted to white men, with a preference for Southeast Asian / Desi and Latino men. I joke that the part of your brain that is responsible for ew, no, incest, icky, just went a little too hard and applies that to all white men. Most of my family has also married outside of their race as well. Something was either encouraged in terms of acceptance or open-mindedness. Like I said earlier, I have had that feeling where like, I'm just like, ew, this is too close. Like, I don't think black men are disgusting at all, but it just feels too close. You know what I mean? I've tried for years to figure out why I have basically always had a preference for black women, and I've never been able to figure it out. The first black girl I was knowingly crushing on all the way back in kindergarten was black. And even before that, my parents told me that I had a mini crush on a black girl I went to daycare with. Ever since then, that's basically not changed at all. It was never tied to a trauma or negative experience with my own ethnicity because I never had any experience when it more or less began for me. When I think back about childhood crushes, there are two people that come to mind. One of them I've told a story about on our channel already, and I'll just put it up here if you'd like to see that. He was probably the first mutual crush that I had. I have a story. Oh my gosh, I need to put this down. So I got kicked out of kindergarten. That's a whole story for another day. But when I was in kindergarten, I remember we used to have to hold hands when we walked from the schoolyard to the chapel, or when we walked to the classrooms from the schoolyard, things like that. There were always these little boys that would fight to hold my hand. And they were all different kinds of boys. They were white, Asian, Hispanic, black, like all of these little boys were trying to fight and take turns about who was going to hold Krista's hand. And I remember because I would end up holding two people's hands sometimes. And also, one of the boys in that classroom was Puerto Rican. His name was Anthony. He was my best friend for a couple years, and we reconnected. It was a whole thing. Oh my gosh, he was great. My first best friend was also Latino, and I never thought about it until now. Opposites attract. Yeah, I would say so. And I know that there have been studies, and maybe I'll do a video on this when it comes to interracial or intercultural relationships, but there have been studies done about this idea of opposites attracting, and science claims that they actually do not, that you feel more comfortable and you're more apt to fall in love with familiarity. I would agree with this sentiment. The more opposite you are from me, the more I want to learn about you, the more fascinating I find you, the more I want to dig into what makes you you. My experience dating men of my race was negative. Most of them did some kind of cheating or lying to their partners. Their way of thinking did not align with my mindset. Therefore, I decided to date races different to mine until I found my husband. You might as well ask why someone prefers chocolate ice cream over vanilla, why my wife loves beans and I can't stand them. We're all wired differently and have different experiences that shape our behavior and preferences. Ain't that the truth? Parents always told me to study hard, get a good job, and then you will meet a nice girl and have your own family. It was as if my whole life had already been planned ever since I was in school. When I grew up, I started to resent that life, the predicted life, the steps already planned, no adventure, no sense of exploration, no nothing. I just couldn't imagine that life. I don't hate women of my ethnicity. All of them are quite beautiful and attractive. What I hate is the life that has been planned for me. I guess dating and marrying a girl of a different ethnicity and or nationality would make life less mundane and quite adventurous. Every day learning about her culture, her likes and dislikes, seeing the world from her eyes, her language would be exciting. That's why I prefer dating interracially. That's a really interesting take. I've never thought about that. Like if you come from an environment where everything is laid out for you or dictated, mandated for you. Yeah, that could be a form of rebellion. And I also like the fact that this poster put up a real explanation as to what they like about dating interracially. So that's a very, very interesting take. I think for me, Black American female currently attracted to Asian and man. I laugh because she says currently, but I feel the same way. Like there were times when I was growing up that the pendulum swung one way or the other. I think for me, Black American female currently attracted to Asian and Hispanic men primarily, there are several reasons. Okay, this wording is confusing, but I think what she's trying to say is that she feels like she has an inherent need to be different on a molecular level. I also get easily bored along with that. So I grew up in my own culture. I'm interested in others. I guess I desire more rather than more of the same. Also, many of the people who bullied me growing up were my race, so I think I developed somewhat of an aversion to my culture on some level. All that being said, I feel like a lot of bullying is often, not always, within races. Why? I don't know. I did attempt to date some Black men. I did. And it just did not work out. I can't say that there was anything drastic that they did or I did. We didn't click. I did go through phases where I was like, let me try and date here. Let me try and date there. Mostly because I realized throughout my dating history that I was very, very heavily leaning toward the Latin American side of things. And I psyched myself out at a point thinking, oh my gosh, am I racist? Like, do I hate Black people? I started just going really over analytically into why I was so attracted to Latin American men. So I pushed back and I did try and date outside of my preference, and it just didn't click the same way. Like it didn't feel the same. So I found it amusing that she said currently attracted, because I've been through that experience. One last note, as someone who hates norms and being controlled, I've always found interracial couples beautiful because to me, despite not being intentional and just natural, they've always been statements of breaking barriers and not letting society/the world dictate your life. I don't know if it's something that other people in interracial relationships do, but I feel like whenever I see an interracial couple and I'm out with my husband, there's like this, I don't know, not that we look at each other and we give each other the secret handshake or anything like that, but I feel like there is some solidarity there. They probably don't even know that I exist, but being able to see other people in similar relationships, it kind of validates it validates something for me. I'll have to think about it and determine exactly what it is. For me, this question is deeply personal and shaped by lived experience rather than a fixed preference list. I'm a bisexual Black man who grew up in a predominantly white community. Because of that, people have often assumed I must prefer white partners. While I find some white men sexually attractive, I've never felt a genuine desire to date them, and I've rarely felt attraction to white women at all. If I were to delve into it emotionally, I've never been one to stay in places where I cannot be seen fully, and growing up, I felt so alone and an outsider, and seeing certain groups at their worst transitioned me into adulthood. In contrast, I've always found women of color profoundly attractive, not just physically, but in terms of presence, depth, and cultural resonance. My long-term romantic relationships reflect that. My ex-husband is Mexican, and when I lived in Texas, most of the men who were both attracted to me and emotionally available to me were Latino. Friends used to joke that less English someone spoke, the more interested I was. Yeah, that's kind of my story as well. And while a joke, not entirely detached from reality, there was an ease and a mutual recognition there that felt natural rather than forced. After my divorce, I did attempt to date a white man. That relationship was short-lived due to unkindness, and while I don't generalize that experience to all white men, it did reinforce what I already suspected about where I felt emotionally safe and understood. I'm now engaged to a Filipino man. He's just Mr. International over here, and that relationship feels deeply aligned. Part of that is attraction, but a large part is shared values and parallel racial experiences. Filipino communities and Black American communities, while distinct, often share histories of marginalization, strong family orientation, collectivism, and sensitivity to social justice issues. That overlap matters to me. It creates a sense of mutual understanding that I've learned not to dismiss. So for me, interracial dating isn't about novelty, rebellion, or trauma avoidance. It's about where attraction, values, lived experiences, and emotional safety naturally intersect. I also want to be explicit about what this isn't. This isn't about internalized self-hatred, fetishization, or believing one race is inherently better than another. I don't devalue Blackness by any means. I deeply value it, including in myself. Nor do I idealize races as abstractions. My attractions have developed through proximity, reciprocity, emotional safety, and shared social realities. Desire doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's shaped by who sees you fully, who understands your context, and who you are allowed to be vulnerable with. Acknowledging that race plays a role in those dynamics isn't racism, it's honesty. This man so eloquently explained what I am feeling, and a lot of what he says resonates with me so much. May he live his best international, interracial, intercultural life, because he sure is working hard at it. I have a type, and that type is beautiful, intelligent, emotionally mature, funny, and genuinely kind. Where she's from is irrelevant. I don't see the point in limiting myself to my own people. I have greater interest in dating outside my race because more different types of women exist who aren't my people than otherwise. And I'm nowhere near religious enough to where I feel I need to date within my cultural or religious circle. I don't know. That's why I keep asking. I still don't know the answer, and that has been the issue. I don't know the reason I'm like this, and it doesn't make me happy. It leaves a very heavy sense of shame on me. The majority of information that everybody is sharing is coming from this positive, really upbeat place, And you don't think about the fact that there could be people out there that are closeted racists or that grow up getting this messaging that they should only be attracted to people that are part of their community. The fact that they're really upset about attraction to people outside of their race is really sad. A plethora of different opinions, some that were similar, some that were surprising, like almost one of the last ones about the person that doesn't want to be attracted to people from different races. I know this video is different from the kind of content that I typically make, but if this is something that you're interested in and you'd like to see more of it, let me know. Otherwise, I'd be happy to hear your opinions in the comments. As we always say on our channel, with God, all things are possible. Thanks for being here, and I will see you soon. Take care.